Hello, everyone, and welcome scholars and alumni to our first Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneurs session, a speaker series in partnership with Immigrants Rising. My name is Nicole Wesley, Senior Program Manager of Career Supports at TheDream.Us. Before we begin, I want to share some brief announcements. First off, introduce yourself in the chat. This is a great way to network with other scholars across the country. So feel free to include your name, major, the college you're attending, and your LinkedIn URL as well. For today's event, please use the Q&A to ask any questions that you may have for the panelists. Use the chat for any other communication. Know that all sessions will be recorded and posted to our Dream.Us YouTube channel. And lastly, please know that all information provided during today's session is for educational purposes only. Information shared is not legal advice. I want to also briefly mention our ITIN website, as ITINs can be a powerful tool for those who are not eligible for a social security number. An ITIN is an individual taxpayer identification number that is issued by the IRS. ITINs can be used to file and pay taxes, open a bank account, apply for an EIN, and pursue entrepreneurial career opportunities through independent contracting, freelancing, or starting a business. For more information on ITINs, check out our website. You can also find a link to Immigrants Rising's ITIN guide at the bottom of our ITIN webpage. And as a reminder, our Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneurs speaker series consists of 5 sessions starting this month. All events are 90 minutes in length and start at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Please make sure to adjust for your own time zone. Also know that each session has its own separate Zoom link, so make sure you're clicking the correct link per the event flyer. Our next session will be a week from today on Wednesday, November 8th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time with a focus on entrepreneurship and education. And now I'm excited to begin today's session with a focus on entrepreneurship and business. I'll turn it over to our moderators from Immigrants Rising, Rocio and Danae. Take it away. Rocio, you are muted.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're very excited to have this partnership with the Dream.Us in this initiative where we are going to be bringing on entrepreneurs who have gone through the entrepreneurial journey despite their immigration status and have overcome a lot of different barriers. And so for the last 17 years, Immigrants Rising has been involved in a lot of the entrepreneurial work. Why? Because we understand that there are a lot of folks who have the skills, the knowledge, and the expertise to be able to thrive in this country. And we've come together with other organizations and with folks who are on the ground to come and develop resources to be able to support that journey for a lot of other undocumented folks. And so a lot of my experience being formerly undocumented came about really trying to understand what were the opportunities available for me despite my immigration status. I'm the Director of Mental Health and Career Services at Immigrants Rising. And when I first joined the organization, that was one of the first things that I had to consider, entrepreneurship. I started my own business at the flea market after graduating from UC Santa Cruz, and that became my very first exposure to entrepreneurship. It was really thanks to some of the resources that Immigrants Rising launched back in the day with their very first guide, A Life After College, that I became exposed to that journey and to that process. We're very excited to now have a full programming and a full wealth of information and resources and curriculum that actually touches on the process and the journey of becoming an entrepreneur. And we're very excited that we have the opportunity to partner with Dream.Us to be able to share some of those resources and to be able to highlight some of the work that we've been doing for the past 17 years and being able to bring you into some of this work through this partnership. So we're very excited to have you all here. And again, one of the things that we want you to ask yourselves as you're engaging in this panel session is to really think about what was your first encounter and your first exposure to entrepreneurship. We all know someone, have been exposed to someone, have been connected with someone who has had that entrepreneurial spirit, whether it's yourself, whether it's a parent, whether it's a grandparent, whether it's a relative. So we want you to sit with that question. What was your first exposure to entrepreneurship? And so today we have an amazing lineup of people who have lived the journey and the process. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Danae to introduce herself and also to share with us, Danae, what was your first exposure to entrepreneurship?
Thank you so much, Rocio. I appreciate it. My name is Danae Joseph. I'm the National Entrepreneurship Manager over at Immigrants Rising and the Program Manager doing the coordination between TheDream.Us and Immigrants Rising. Rocio, that question about my first exposure to entrepreneurship, I would have to say, was in high school when I started to sell bags of chips because we needed the coins, okay? I needed the coins for grad night and for prom and all that good stuff. And I saw a friend named Andres, he was selling bus passes on the low, okay? And I said, wait a minute, this could actually be something that's lucrative. So I would go to Smart and Final, I would buy the big boxes of chips that had like 30 to 50 in them and sell them for 50 cents to $1 each. And I was bringing home the coins at the end of the day. So that was my first real introduction to entrepreneurship and the way that I saw myself fitting in that picture. And the rest is history. Today, I'm honored to be joined by incredible entrepreneurs, individuals who have created pathways in their own right and really been able to set a precedent for what immigrants are able to accomplish. And they truly show us that there's no limitations to what people who are immigrants, undocumented, or otherwise are able to achieve. And so I have the honor and pleasure of being able to introduce all of them and their biographies. So what I'm going to do all of their bios, and then they're going to take time, 5 minutes per individual, to be able to share out what they see fit. And then you all are in for a treat with a moderated conversation that we're going to have where you could get to the real nitty gritty of how they were able to get to where they are. So I'm going to start out with Armando Ibanez, who is a writer and director of Undocumented Tales. Armando is an undocumented queer filmmaker from Acapulco, Guerrero, Mexico. His passion for film began at the age of 7 years old while watching Mexican cinema from the 1950s. Armando is the director and writer of a YouTube series actually called Undocumented Tales, a story that follows the journey of a Mexican undocumented and queer server living in Los Angeles. Armando is committed to portraying authentic Latinx characters and addressing real issues impacting immigrant communities in the United States. We also have Nancy Alua, owner of Alua Cellars. Nancy Alua is the owner, winemaker, and a boss lady of Alua Cellars. Alua Cellars is a wine brand based in Paso Robles, specializing in the production of obscure white wine. So if you're a white wine lover, then go to Nancy. She specializes in the production of it from California's Central Coast. And it's made with the intention and a little bit of magic, Nancy likes to tell us. She began her entrepreneurial journey by accident in 2019, following the creation of her very first wine. And being a first-generation business owner, Nancy's business model approach is actually the opposite of conventional. Her intuition, energy work, and passion for mindfulness has guided her to lead her business and business structure. Nancy's passion and purpose is to create inclusivity in the wine community through wine education. Next, we have Yosimar Reyes, who is a writer and a poet. Yosimar is a nationally acclaimed poet and public speaker, renowned for his powerful performances and thought-provoking messages. Born in Guerrero, Mexico, and raised in East Side San Jose, Reyes actually draws inspiration from his personal experiences, both as an immigrant and as a member of the LGBTQIA community. And Reyes's talent has earned him numerous accolades, including being named a Lambda Literary Fellow and the recipient of Undocumented Poets Fellowship. He has toured and presented at university campuses across the United States, captivating audiences with his dynamic and engaging presentations. We also have Charette Garcia of Undocumented Professionals, who was born and raised in Oaxaca, Mexico, and moved to Los Angeles over 20 years ago, where she began her education and career journey. And she has not left since then. She is an Angelino at heart, celebrating the diverse people, city, and many adventures that she's made in California as a home. And it's also a big part of the fact that her family continues to reside in the state of California. She's the product of community college and recently transferred to the University of California, Santa Barbara, where she obtained a master's in guidance counseling from LMU and is pursuing a doctoral degree at Pepperdine University. Next, we have Tobere Owe, owner of The Pedal Effect. Tobere is a creative entrepreneur born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. Tobere migrated to the United States at the age of 7 years old and settled in Maryland, where her family actually resides, and she graduated from high school at the age of 16. She was determined to become an interior designer and was quick to start applying for higher education. But she saw that she would have limitations as a result of her undocumented status. Given the fact that she didn't have legal status, she was unable to receive financial aid, and she spent a few years really looking for creative endeavors to be able to find her own passions and pursuits. So in 2011, she started to research other forms of design that didn't require a college degree, and quickly discovered floral and event design, because that's what we're about, creating opportunities where there are none. Last but certainly not least, we have David Cruz, who's the co-founder and owner of Radiate Consulting. David Cruz from Mexico City and currently settled in the California Central Valley, shout out to the Central Valley, is a distinguished entrepreneur with a flair for languages and cultural exchange. A graduate of the University of California, Santa Cruz, he actually holds a bachelor's degree in linguistics and politics, and it's a testament to his deep-rooted passion for communication and societal dynamics. So without further ado, and while allowing myself to drink a bit of water after all 6 introductions and biographies, honey, I've earned it. We're going to go ahead and get started with David Cruz to start his 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Well, thank you, Danae, for that lovely introduction. Once again, my name is David Cruz. Pronouns are he, him, his. My geographic location is in the California Central Valley, more specifically in Stockton, California. As it was mentioned, my first encounter with entrepreneurship was when I was in elementary school. My mom would actually make tiny little bags of stickers for Halloween, and we would sell them for 2 pesos. And at the end of the week, we would have 80 pesos, would return the investment to my mom, and we just make more out of that during the Halloween weekend. So that was my first time as an entrepreneur. But when I moved to the United States, it was actually through a multi-level marketing. My mom had always been in multi-level marketing, but it was here in the United States that we actually took advantage of that, because we weren't able to, because of the situation, we weren't able to obtain formal employment, whether that being, working as a secretary with my mom's degree and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we were able to come out as entrepreneurs, selling protein smoothies. And then we started jumping into photography with my dad. We did event photography. So all my weekends throughout high school and college, they were, instead of going to parties to party, it was me going to parties to record people partying. So, and then after that, I went into college for UC Santa Cruz with linguistics and politics. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to obtain a job after or throughout, not even an internship, because of the lack of social security number, because of I don't have DACA. So at the end of the day, I ended up freelancing as a translator and interpreter. And one thing led to the other, where my biggest upcoming was through my social capital. Thanks to the social capital that I was able to accumulate while I was in college, it was them who were recommending me when they found out that I was doing translation and interpretation. I think that the biggest turnout and my biggest prize coming out of college with my degree was that social capital. So I would say that don't ever let that a chance or opportunity go away. Creating your network, sharing just a simple time with someone will go a long way. Whether that is just having a tea, whether that is just going on a walk or having a class together, spending all-nighters. I think that all of that counts into creating that social capital that when you come out of college and you are facing all these hurdles to take off in your career, this is what's going to help you out in the future. Because I mean, at least this is what helped me out, my social capital, as I was doing my solo entrepreneurship as a translator and interpreter. Thankfully, that same social capital, it was the one that carried me into the network that allowed me to be a co-founder of Radiate Consulting Bay Area back in 2020 in the midst of the whole pandemic. So that's where my journey as an entrepreneur started. That's where I find the motivation, the fact that it's been ingrained in me since I was a little kid, selling the stickers, selling protein smoothies, doing photography. Everything counts in what you do. If you think that that whatever you do is not gonna help you professionally, it's giving you skills, whether that is creating, kneading, or anything, cooking. You can even make your own business out of your own kitchen. So if you have your imagination on point, your business will be able to come afloat. So make sure that you're always capitalizing on your social capital, on your social network, and that you are always persistent, because there will be hurdles. Even though we do have a network, even though we do have support, there will be hurdles here and there. So just make sure that you are staying in communication with one another, and that you don't lose hope into what you want to do with your dreams.
Thank you so much, David. Next up, we have Tobere Owe, owner and creator of The Pedal Effect.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Everyone hear me? Okay. My name is Tobere. I'm so grateful to be here. So my entrepreneurship journey really begun from my parents. Growing up in Nigeria, my parents owned their own companies. My dad had a video shop and my mom had a dental clinic. So coming here to America when I was 7, I think they were already molding me in that way, and I didn't even realize it till just really reflecting as an adult. So I came here when I was 7, and I was in high school when I realized like I want to be an interior designer. It was actually middle school. I was like, I'm a creative. I want to be an interior designer. That was my goal. So I was able to graduate high school a year early. So I graduated high school when I was 16 because I was so eager to go to college. And, I went to a lot of orientations, and, I picked up I remember this one particular orientation I went to. It was Florida A&M, and I was like, I'm going to the hot weather immediately, sign me up. And I took the application, and I went home and I started to fill it out. And then it said SSN. And I was like, that was the moment I realized, like, oh man, I'm not going to college because I don't have one. I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford college. My parents couldn't help me through the whole process. So in that moment is when I honestly became an entrepreneur myself, because I realized life for myself would be looking a lot different than the normal person. So I spent a lot of years finding odd jobs, trying to, figure out my life really. And, in that moment, I was also like, I don't want to give up on my creativeness and what I really want to do in life. So I honestly started pursuing it through just reaching out and networking with people. So at first I had a career modeling. So first thing I did was move to New York and, just work with my network. I asked my parents, who do you know in New York? And we had a relative. So I went to go live there. So I modeled with a few agencies for a few years there. And I was able to work with these big corporations. And I just was like, me, little old me. So then I moved back home and, I was like, I'm ready to be a floral designer full time. Since I didn't get to really go to school to be an interior designer, I really started researching what other forms of design I can do that didn't require school. So I was able to get into floral design. And in 2017, I moved to Los Angeles. And during the pandemic was really a crossroads for me when I was finding myself at a job that I didn't like. I felt someone was taking advantage of me. And I seized that opportunity to launch my business. And that's when I officially launched the Petal Effect. But the Petal Effect was an idea I had since 2011. I actually came up with my name in 2011, but I didn't officially launch till 2020. So that's a little bit about how my entrepreneurship journey started. And I've been able to work with amazing clients that I can't even imagine, like I couldn't imagine working with when I was younger. So definitely whatever dream you have, go ahead and just go for it because there's no limits to what you believe in yourself.
Thank you for that, Toby. Wonderful message. No limitations to what you could achieve for yourself. And next up, we have Nancy Olua of Olua Sellers.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited and humbled to be here and to share my story. My name is Nancy Ulloa, and I'm the owner, winemaker, and boss lady of Ulloa Cellars. I live in Paso Robles, California, on the Central Coast. I've been living here since 2017. I was actually born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, and I immigrated to the States in 1999 at the age of 12. I spent most of my life, after Mexico in the US up in the Bay Area. I actually know Yosimar from San Jose State. So it was really amazing to hear that we were in the panel together. I'm super excited. I mean, knowing everything he's done, I'm so humbled to be here with him. And so I went to San Jose State. I studied sociology with a concentration in community change because I've always loved working with community and just trying to help as much as possible. When I was looking at, what choices I had for going to college, I just didn't think that I was smart enough or creative enough to do something different. And so I was like, okay, I can either, based on like the gender role standards that I feel like my family had, like it was either I became a teacher or a counselor, and I didn't want to teach. So I was like, I'll just go into sociology and like work with nonprofits. And that is something that I would say that I agree with David. I feel like going to, studying sociology and working with so many organizations gave me so many skills in terms of like how to communicate with people and how to collaborate and, reach goals together. And so while I was going to college and studying sociology, I was working in fine dining, which paid the bills. And I actually really enjoyed being with people. I consider myself to be a foodie. So being able to work in fine dining and learn about all these different produce and cuts of meats and, cuisines really opened my world to something different. And when I was working in fine dining, I also learned a lot about wine. And every time that I heard anything that had to do with wine, I just like physically feel this little fire inside me. And I was like, I want to learn more. I want to see it done. I want to get my hands dirty. So I went through a stage in my life. This was back in 2015 when I was able to escape an abusive relationship in which I felt trapped for a long time. And once I was able to leave that relationship, I felt this newfound passion for life. I was like, I am alive and I could do anything I want with my life. I went from a victim mentality, which I feel like sometimes with or status, it's easy to fall into. And I was like, I know that there's all these limitations that I have, but there's also all this freedom that I have. And if I have the right resources, I can do anything I want within, you know, the limits that we have. And so I asked myself, like, if I could live any kind of life, what would it look like? And so right away I was like, wine. Like, I want to move to wine country. I want to go and ask for mentorship opportunities and volunteer and just get to know the community and just get my foot in the door through that. And so, and I, for a whole year and a half, I like worked my butt off to save all the money I could to move to wine country. And I ended up moving to Paso Robles in 2017. And I just started to meet people and talk to people. I got a job at a restaurant where I became the wine director, which gave me immediate knowledge to, you know, access to knowledge with the area and all the grapes that are being grown here and the different styles of wine that are being produced. And then in 2018, I started working at a winery where I was doing hospitality, but also I made sure, and I was super intentional about looking for a job at a place that would allow me to learn while I was making money to pay the bills. And then a year later in 2019, I purchased my first ton of grapes. It was a ton of grapes, literally 2,000 pounds. And I made my first wine. I didn't go into this thinking of it as a business. I just knew it was something that it was a passion, and I wanted to just, like, you know, get my hands dirty. And then once, I will tell you more about it later because my time is up. But I'm just so excited to be here and continue to share what my journey has been like. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you all, Nancy, for that. And I think you paid attention to something crucial, which was Nancy strategically placed herself in a position to get more knowledge until she was able to create her own. She was never going to settle with just continuing to work for other people. So scholars, pay attention to that bit because we're going to circle back on that later. And next up, we're going to introduce Armando Ibanez of Undocumented.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be here. My name is, again, Armando Ibanez, pronounced he, his, him. I am the founder of Ibanez Productions. I produce, create, direct, and edit videos and film projects. I would say that my journey, well, growing up in Acapulco, Mexico, we were going through like a lot of poverty with my family, and I always watch movies. I always wanted to watch movies all the time. Like, movies were my escape from reality. And I never thought I could be a filmmaker or a producer, a video editor, because I thought that was only a profession for rich or white people, not for me. So I came to the US. We immigrated in 2000, more than 20 years ago, in Los Angeles, California, because I was struggling and with depression for my undocumented status. I was like, oh, I wanted to do more with my life, but I didn't know how. Also, I didn't know there were more people out as undocumented immigrants. And I spent most of my 20s, kind of like a sad and not knowing what to do with my life. When I was about 30, that's when I started. I came out as queer and undocumented, and I met an amazing community in Los Angeles of undocumented, queer, and trans people who were making a lot of changes. And with them, I learned that that I could go to college, I could go to university without a social security number. And I started pursuing college, I started pursuing film, but I was very confused because once I was in college, I was like, what am I gonna do once I graduate? Like, there's no way I'm gonna go able to apply to studios because I don't have a social security number. So I don't know how to do this. So I was very confused in college. So out of my frustration and depression, I started writing a web series about the life of an undocumented queer Mexican server who lives in LA, who's 30, who has an accent, based on my experiences and the experiences that I have lived. And I put that series on YouTube because I just wanted to create representation, and I wanted to talk about the experiences that I've never seen in mainstream media. And without me knowing, that show, that series started opening doors for me. People started reaching out saying, hey, we're looking for a video editor. We're looking for a producer. We're trying to make these videos and we need someone to help us. And that's how I started creating other projects with nonprofit organizations or other companies. Without me knowing, I was already creating my network with the series. And also I was already creating my company. I was still in college, and I was already producing, editing, doing video work for different clients. Then I also found resources from different organizations. One of them is Immigrants Rising, that provides a lot of resources to undocumented immigrants, and with them I learned about LLC. So I started my LLC in 2020, Ibanez Productions. With that, I was provided an employer identification number. It's a lot of information that I had to go through. Filling out paperwork can be triggering sometimes. So the journey is not easy, especially when sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't understand this. I don't know how to do this. And I got to ask around. I got to go to internet. I got to go to resources. But after 2020, I've been providing services, producing, directing, doing video work, mostly editing work, because it's what I've been getting the most from clients, editing services since I would say probably 6-7 years ago. And now I am currently just working almost full time as a video editor since 6 years ago. I don't know what else to share. I'm just happy that I get to do what I love, creating stories through filming, through producing, by editing, and I just love my work. And I always try to tell people that there's a lot of resources, especially here in California and also in Los Angeles, for immigrants. So I always try to make those resources available, or try to pass that information to a lot more in my community, so they know all the information that I didn't know before.
Thank you so much, Armando. You're always so completely passionate when you speak about your work. And I know that's because it's not just business, it's about your personal life and the way in which you impact change in the community. So thank you. Next up, we have Charette of Undocumented Professionals.
Thank you so much. And I'm very excited to be here with everyone, with all this amazing community that we have here and all these amazing speakers. So thank you so much for having me. My name again is Charette. My pronouns are she, her, ella. And one of the things that I'm going to be very honest is that I did not see myself as an entrepreneur. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I would go to a lot of workshops to learn about entrepreneurship because I knew that was something that could be an opportunity for someone like me that was undocumented without DACA. And one of the things that really happened to me is when I received my master's degree, and I had spent over $80,000 on my master's program in a private university. And I really came to, when it came to graduating, I saw so many of my classmates really having jobs lined up for them. We were preparing for interviews, and we were preparing about pretty much everything to prepare us to the next thing, which is, okay, you're going to get paid, you're going to find a job, you're going to get into your career, right? But I didn't have that opportunity to do that in Miami because I didn't have a social security number. I didn't have a work permit. So that's when I really realized, like, what have I done? I just spent over $80,000, but my own institution that I invested in doesn't really know how to help me, doesn't even know how to serve someone like me. And I doubted myself. I thought maybe I just wasted my time trying to do something that maybe wasn't for me. And I also started to doubt myself, my abilities. I'm like, maybe, I'm not going to be able to get into this field, which in my case, I received a master's in counseling. So I was ready to work for a college and to work with students and start counseling sessions, but I couldn't do it because I couldn't get a job in any institution because I didn't have a social security number. And one of the things that I didn't connect was how can I still be an entrepreneur and also continue with that with my major, with the counseling experience that I already have, or just with all my experience that I already have. So that's when I really came to this realization that I do have to think as an entrepreneur. And one of the ways that I started is with independent contracting. I became an independent contractor providing consulting services to different higher ed institutions. So in some way, I was still doing what I wanted to do, pursuing my passion and pursuing that degree that took me so long and spent so much money on having. And that's when I started to realize that independent contracting is really not that hard. Like I really started with a negative account, right? I had a negative account on my bank account. I didn't have any money. And that's what really pushed me to be like, okay, I have to find ways of how to still use my degree and my areas of expertise and still generate money and be able to have a career. So that's when it really hit me, and I really pushed myself to go into entrepreneurship. And just recently is when I'm starting to call myself an entrepreneur, because even before that, I was not. And that's how I started on Professionals, because I wanted to connect with others that were trying to transition from being a student to a professional, because I know that for someone undocumented, we don't have like specific career paths for us. It's a lot is unknown. And I wanted to use my areas in counseling, in career resources information, and bring it to the undocumented community. And that's how I started Professionals, because I needed a space like Professionals. But just like Nancy mentioned earlier, I didn't think I was the right person. I almost did not start Professionals because I was like, maybe I need to wait until I receive my doctoral degree before I can start something like that. But I pushed myself, I made myself very uncomfortable to start something like Professionals. And I want to welcome everyone here to maybe make yourself a little bit uncomfortable to start that one thing that maybe you can start, whether you already have that degree or not.
Thank you so much, Charette. I think I'm going to go ahead and tweet that out. That's something tweet worthy. Make yourself uncomfortable, right? Be unafraid and unapologetic to step into something new. So without further ado, we're going to pass it on over to Yosima Reyes, or as I call him, Yosi Pelosi, to go ahead and tell you all a little bit more about himself.
Buenas tardes, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Yosimar. Really excited to be here. I'm based out of Eastside San Jose. My LLC is Prieto LLC, and I'm basically a poet. I'm a writer, and most of the work that I do is around personal narrative. I go around the country doing public speaking events. So I speak predominantly at universities, colleges, about my journey as an artist, as a writer. I share poems and stories, so I'm more in the art sector. But my introduction to entrepreneurship, I feel like I grew up around it, but we never use those words, and that's why as the writer, I wrote words matter, importan. En español se usa la palabra emprendedora o emprendedor, and we used to use those words when we got invited to like a Mary Kay, reunión de Mary Kay, or these jobs that most of our people do because they want to make income. And I grew up in an apartment complex with predominantly undocumented immigrants. La señora del 33 vendía sodas, una vendía los tamales, una vendía tacos. So grew up around a community that was already conducting businesses like back home, and it was normal. It's something that came natural, but never official businesses. So I grew up around this. And my grandma, I think, who's also like the inspiration of a lot of my work, was definitely into her bag, because our house was our one-stop shop for migrant, like a 7-Eleven for migrants. She fed day laborers. Ella vendía tarjetas telefónicas de Pepe Aguilar, if you remember back in the day. She babysat kids. She sold tamales. Our house was a whole strip mall. Pero I think out of that, I realized the significance and the importance of having multiple streams of income, and how blessed she was, because a veces se le olvidaba where the money was coming from. She's like, oh, somebody owes me money. And then she's like, oh, a pleasant surprise, you know? So all this through a cuaderno. I feel like all our moms have this magical cuaderno, which I'm like, girl, put it on a Google Doc, because if you lose that cuaderno, we're not going to know who owes us. But I think all of these things that were like unofficial were my inspiration for a lot of the stuff. And so I started doing a lot of public speaking, writing these really specific, nuanced stories that a lot of people didn't understand. And the idea for me was also to disrupt this narrative that people have about undocumented immigrants as deficit narratives. I got really annoyed that every time I was in the news, people expected me to cry or plea or like somehow be this destituted individual that just needed American acceptance. And when the reality is that I come from a community that's bountiful, that's talented, that is genius, the community that honestly to survive 5, 10, 15 years and undocumented, it's a special kind of genius and ability. So for me, I wanted to celebrate that. And so my biggest shift in my work was that I didn't want to use my narrative to justify my presence here. I wanted to use my narrative to inspire my community, my vecinas, my neighbors, to see ourselves as able and willing and for us to take up space. So I think that's where my work, I think, shines more. And now my work is central to undocumented audiences. It takes care of undocumented audiences, and anybody else that wants to join in is welcome to join in. But the center and the focus point is the self-esteem of the people that need it the most. And yeah, this is what I'm doing now. Thankfully, I have my company, and now I can hire people. I have a business manager that manages that. And now through this, I manage people that do my videos. I manage people that do my websites. I manage people that do my graphic design. And through that, what I've been able to do is also make it a priority to hire other undocumented immigrant-owned businesses. So through that, develop a network of supporting other businesses that are also doing this work. And also right now I'm doing a rebranding, and part of the landing page in my page is going to be other undocumented artists that we can support to build that network stronger. So I think for me, the biggest thing is that I aspire to have a community like the one that I grew up in, the apartments, that has all these talents. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to be part of this panel because a lot of these folks are really, really dynamic, and I know they're killing it in their area. And it's really dope to know, like, oh, if I want a wine, I can find somebody that is making it, or like if I need a florist, I can find someone that's doing that. So it's pretty, really amazing. And I always say this, there's really nothing beautiful about being undocumented. I make it look cute because I have to. But if there is one beautiful thing about it, is that we all came out as undocumented, and that we found a vast majority of a wide network of people that are breaking these class ceilings that were not supposed to be meant to be broken, right? People weren't expecting us to make it this way. So I'm really, really excited to be part of this network and see what all of your other businesses, ventures are going to take us. So really excited to be here with y'all.
Thank you so much, Yosimar. And now you all see exactly why you have to book Yosi, as though he's not booked and busy enough to come to your respective colleges and universities. So now I'm going to take off my hostess with the mostest hat and put on my Oprah Winfrey moderator hat. Maybe this is the part where I say you get a scholarship, you get a scholarship, you all get a scholarship, but she isn't on her Elon Musk quite yet. So not happening at this very moment, but maybe we'll circle back in a few years to do that. But I just wanted to go ahead and start off this conversation first and foremost by thanking you all for being vulnerable with your stories, with your passions, and letting us know exactly how you came to this trajectory. So my first question is, how did your undocumented story inform your business decision? Right? Especially that first business decision. And the reason that I ask is because people often like to look at entrepreneurship as a result of a dream deferred instead of being a priority and a response to our interests. So how did your undocumented story impact your narrative and how you became a business owner? And since we finished with Yosi, let's go ahead and start with Yosi to answer that question.
I think it was just well, I was already doing a lot of public speaking events and whatnot. And I think one of the biggest things for me that was really frustrating, honestly, is the state of DACA, like this constant frustration of not knowing if this number is gonna go or stay, if I'm gonna be able to work. And the reality is that I'm the first in my family to graduate from college. So like most of you, I'm the only one that has this number. So I am responsible for a lot of people. So I was like, listen, once I learned the mechanisms and the taxes and all of that, I was like, let me figure out how to do this, because there's a lot of things that they're going to benefit from my business if I just do it as an LLC as opposed to me through the social security number. And also I just want to have a secured safety thing. And so I think once I learned the practicalities and the significance of that and what I can write off and what I can actually all of that mess, then I was like, listen, I think it makes more sense for me to make it official and launch it. And of course, I was scared. I was scared because I'm like, oh, I don't know. What if it fails? What if it doesn't work? Also, like, there's a lot of dates that I need to keep in mind. But I think that's an important thing also that I also took into account of like, who can I partner? And obviously I can't do it by myself. So I need to hire somebody that can be my business manager and they just can handle that, my contracts, everything. And obviously they take a percentage. Luckily, I found someone that I trust and someone that has the expertise with QuickBooks to pay people, to W-9s, todo eso. And then just pay them out. And I think that it's how it's working out. So right now, my hope is that I can venture out and start creating my own little media team, and then eventually be doing big things. And for me, one of the other things that for me was like, there's nonprofit and for-profit. I think for me, it worked to do for-profit because I need to, be able to support my family as well. And the other thing for me is like, my biggest goal is how I can get some of my family members on payroll to help me with some of the other things that I do need in assistance for and I think that's the biggest strategy that I'm looking at in long run, because through payroll, I can get them healthcare and all that. So all these little things that I think it's a benefit. So those are the things that I'm thinking about as my business is growing, and hopefully will grow to be a bigger team.
That's amazing. So putting your family in a position where they can be compensated as well too and support your team. That's key. What about you, Toby?
I would say that my undocumented status actually spearheaded my entrepreneur journey faster than I even realized it. So I wanted to shift our mindset to we're actually ahead of the game, because entrepreneurship is ahead of the game. We get taught to be in a corporate ladder, and in the corporate world, we kind of reach a certain plateau, and entrepreneurship allows you to dream as big as you want. So I would say that my undocumented status actually led me to entrepreneurship. And just understanding that we are ahead of the game. Really, when you start thinking about it in that type of way, then you start having actions that actually support that.
So it shouldn't be secondary, it should be primary when we're
For
looking
sure.
at what comes next. Okay.
100%.
And what about you, Armando?
I mean, like I mentioned, right? Like I started sharing my story, and that's what somehow opened doors for me with networking opportunities. But also as an editor, as a filmmaker, I've been collaborating with a lot of nonprofit organizations that produce documentary projects, mostly videos for social change from their vision of the same nonprofit organizations. So I think that the fact that with my vision, for example, when I started my project, I said, I don't want to show, just like what Josimar said, I don't want to show, I'm tired of seeing undocumented immigrants on mainstream media crying all the time. I want to show their resiliency, the power, the beauty. And it's the same thing that I do with other collaborations. When people hire me to produce, direct, or edit, I always try to tell stories excluding the victimized narrative, changing the narrative. And I think I can bring that different, as a producer, as a filmmaker, I can bring that difference when I provide services, that other people that my experiences that help me find my voice, help me find my voice, can help to tell a different story, to become a different type to a filmmaker. And that's an extra that other filmmakers don't have. So my own experiences help me to change narratives with other collaborations that I have done with different organizations. I think that's something that I am very aware of, and that I think it's been helping me a lot with different collaborations.
I love that, Armando. So you're literally taking your story, your experience to interrogate the mainstream media's narrative of immigration, immigrants, and what we look like and sound like. I love that. And what about you, David? How were you able to utilize your lived experience as an immigrant to inform your work?
Yeah, so it all came when I was translating for my parents since 11, right? So whether it's English, Vietnamese, Mandarin, or whatever, we're always, I mean, as kids, right? Because we're going to school in English, and if they don't speak English, they would always be like, "Hey, can you translate?" And if you miss a word, then be like, "What am I sending you to school for?" So it was always that pressure. And so if I was already going to have that pressure, I wanted to capitalize on what I was already doing for free. So, that was my biggest motivation. And then the fact that I also didn't have DACA, so I wasn't able, like me being in linguistics, there were a lot of lab opportunities that I missed out on recording ancient languages, or being able to read spectrograms and stuff like that. So I sort of grew a little bit resentful of my situation. And when I finished college, it still took me about a year to find something. And it was actually through Immigrants Rising that I was able to find an internship. And that internship is the one that redirected me into doing translation and interpretation. In the internship that I was doing the legal immigration internship with Immigrants Rising. But because everything that we were doing was in English, and we were still talking to a lot of people who were Spanish speakers only, it kind of didn't make sense to me, a lot of the things that we were doing, why we were doing it in English. So from there, it was like, well, if this is an organization that is helping our communities, but they also have that problem of helping them in the language that we understand, what are the chances that other organizations are going to do that? So it was a mixture of resentment, a mixture of experience, and a mixture of trial and error, because I mean, it also took me a year to find that internship. And that's in reality what really led me to do translation and interpretation as a freelancer. And then from there on, like I was saying, the social capital, it is what pushed me into formalizing my business. So it's all about taking your experience and being able to capitalize and create some capital with that experience, because no one is going to take your experience away. What you learn, you can't really unlearn, right? You're always going to memorize. And if you forget, you never really learned it. So, it was a mixture of everything, and I just hope that as I grow as an interpreter and translator, I also come across with other informal translators and interpreters, so that they can actually start capitalizing on what they're already doing for free. And ultimately, it is about the connection of communities. It is about being able to keep the communities informed, because if you have the key to life, but that key to life is in Chinese, is in Urdu, is in Russian, and you don't speak those languages, you're not going to be able to do anything with that with that secret to how to win life. So my goal ultimately throughout this whole time when I came to the United States is being able to connect communities through information, because information is power. And we're here in community, and we're here to create that collective power, and that collective power is created with that information and language.
Oh, David, you dropped so many gems in that. Wow. But the biggest takeaway that I had was making sure that you're taking a mental note of the things that you do naturally for free and turning that into something that could be something that you could get profit from. I think that was a crucial takeaway. So the next time my grandmother tells one of her friends that I'm an expert in Apple for being able to FaceTime, I will start charging folks. So thank you for that, David. And so one of the other questions that I had for you all was about what skill sets did you all bring to the table? What skill sets did you have to acquire to be able to continue your businesses? And then what skill sets are you actively working to improve on? And so we could get started any which way. Don't hesitate. Anyone could chime in on that.
I can go.
Perfect.
I would say that just like David was saying, what skill sets I came with, I think it's about analyzing what you're naturally good at. Is it like for me growing up, I used to like create art for my mom to put on our walls, right? So those are things I naturally did. I used to play with faux flowers in my house with my mom. So when I'm a floral designer, it kind of came up for me, right? So I would say what I came with was things I did naturally, right? Was being a creative or technology, things I had to really learn as an entrepreneurship is how to wear many hats at the same time. Because entrepreneurship, it's it's a lot. You have to be the CEO, you have to be the creative director, you have to be the operations manager. It's so many hats you wear. So that's something I had to step into a leadership kind of position for myself, whether I wanted to or not. And something I'm really working on is building that team. I think a lot of us think about our skills when it comes to entrepreneurship. And again, I challenge everyone to think about what your team looks like as well while you're in the process of building out your business. What team members do you need? So as you start thinking about it, you can start thinking about what family members have these skills, what friends have these skills. So you don't even have to start by yourself, really. I think we get into a place of wanting to, oh, I'm going to do it first, then I'm going to come back and grab people. But if you think about what you have, what resources you already have, you'll realize that it doesn't have to be so hard and so much pressure on just yourself.
I love that. So kind of doing like a power mapping of your own circle so you know who to tap for opportunities. That's great. Who would like to go next? I think I did see Nancy unmute.
Yeah, so for me, I would say that the strongest skill set that I brought into my business was the fact that studying sociology and working with all these nonprofits, I was able to learn how to communicate with people efficiently, and then also how to find the resources that I need to continue operating my business. I feel like when I made my first wine, and then I was like, oh, what bottle am I gonna put it in? What kind of label? What's the label gonna look like? And I was like, oh shoot, I'm becoming a business owner. And it was really like a scary realization for me, because I just wanted to make wine and learn how to make wine because that was my passion. But then I was like, oh shoot, like I have these 50 cases. I need to move the wine. Like I need to switch around like my focus from making the wine into operating the business. And so I've been able to look for the right resources. I have mentors for everything. I have a mentor that helps me with my website. I have a mentor that helps me with like sales. Someone else helps me with like the back end of business. Like understanding the language of business is so overwhelming, and so being able to go to the right organizations to help me has been essential. And I think not only has it helped me, but it also has helped people in my community who I have referred to those organizations so that they can go and look for funds, they can go and look for mentorship or coaches or stuff like that. So I think that that's something that really like has helped me to get through. Something that one of the skill sets that I'm looking at the moment to like continue to attain is to find a way to operate the business that really resonates with me and what feels right. I feel like there's this traditional structure of how you should run your business based on numbers, logic, just like all these things that like are so masculine and power and profits. And for me, like, I know that being able to make money to operate my business is so important, because just like Yosimar, my goal is to be able to operate my business to the point that I can employ my dad and and get other people in my family and the payroll. And so what I have done that I think it's different, that really helps me, and I'm still trying to adapt, is to look at it from a more energy, intuition based, kind of like tools, like rather than like thinking of like numbers, like what feels right, what doesn't feel right. I opened my tasting room in July, and prior to opening the tasting room, a lot of people said, don't do it. Like, don't do it. The economy is not doing right. Like, you can just sell your wine outside of that. And I am so glad I didn't listen to those people, because one of the things that I would say, do not let other people's fears be your fear, because, and especially don't ask for advice from people who have not been in the shoes or in the place where you want to be. If I would have listened to those people, I would have still be on the same place, being fearful of like things that I could or can't achieve. And I have proven to myself to this point that there's so many things that I can achieve because I have done it. And at this point, rather than like being afraid, it's like, okay, what else can I do? Like, rather than like making decisions based on like, okay, I have $10,000, what can I make happen with $10,000? At this point, I'm like, I want all of this, and it's going to require me $70,000 to get there. Okay, I'm going to go for it, and then figure out where to get the money from. And so I think that that's something that has continued to like help me like expand my knowledge and expand my skill set based on like all the things that I want to achieve, rather than like limiting myself to what I feel like I should do. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but
that absolutely answers the question. Thank you so much. I especially love the piece about not allowing other people's fears to become your own, because when you do that, of course, that's going to force their own perceptions on what you're able to accomplish. So I love that. And then I just want to give one more person the opportunity to be able to answer that question as well. Sherette, I don't know if you want to take that question on as well.
Yeah, so I want to mention three things, which all of you have mentioned so many great, incredible things that I'm also learning too in my end. But one thing that I want to remind you is that, being undocumented, I think there's just so much doubt. We always have this feeling that we are here with nothing. Like, we don't have a social security number, we don't have a work permit. So one of the things that I'm learning in my end to remind myself that we do have, and we do have a lot of everything, of creativity, of experience. We don't come to this country with nothing. We don't come to this country with zero or starting from zero. We do have already a lot of things that maybe you see it already, maybe you don't, maybe you're still in the process, but that's something that I'm working on as well, with the work that I do with undocumented professionals, and also with the work that I do in my as an employee, because I do have DACA. So as a DACA recipient, I'm trying to just use as much as I can and utilize this tool, right, as the DACA program, to also bring some income to my family as a DACA recipient. So, I think I often have to remind myself of that we don't come here with zero. We do have a lot of abundance, and we need to continue reminding ourselves of that. Just because we don't see someone that is in nursing, for example, without a social, doesn't mean we can't be the first ones. And we can definitely continue together to build, upon how can we bring policies that are more inclusive? How can we create more paid opportunities for the undocumented community? And that's one of the things that I work a lot with the work that I do, of getting our community paid. So many times I can tell you that I would undersell my services. I would charge $100 when somebody that was a white person was charging over $1,000. And that, I'm telling you, because I've seen that, I've experienced that, and somebody even told me, why are you charging $100 for your services, for your time? I just paid someone over $1,000 for something similar that you're doing. And just because, I was thinking, on my end when I started, oh, it's because I'm new. Oh, it's because I don't know a lot. Oh, it's because I don't have enough experience. Or I just started my business. And that has been a really big challenge. I still struggle with that, of making sure that I'm charging the right amount for my services and for my time and for my experiences. And I just want to remind you of that you can charge, you should charge much higher, probably, because we really are under charging for our services. And also, the other thing that I want to remind everyone is that, I think when I started too, I really, like I said earlier, I started with a negative account on my bank account. Like, I literally was going through a divorce. And one of the fears that I was having is, how am I going to be able to feed my kids? How am I going to feed my two children that I have? Because the father is no longer in the picture, right? And that was really scary. And sometimes, I think back about why I started being as undocumented professionals, or why I started being an entrepreneur. I know sometimes necessity is the reason, because I had to make sure that I was providing for my family, that I was doing what I needed to do to pay my bills. And that was a little push for me. I'm not gonna, say that wasn't something that pushed me to do it. And and that's one of the reasons why I made myself like, I need to start this. I need to start something. And I think just starting was one of the hardest things for me. Just starting my entrepreneurship journey was so hard, because I didn't know how to start. I didn't know when to start. And one of the things that I did, I pushed myself to sign up for a conference that was happening in Los Angeles, in California, actually in UCLA. And I signed up. I did not have a mission. I did not have the goals. I did not have, not even a way of how am I gonna even start generating money with this. But I knew I wanted to start undocumented professionals, even though I didn't really know how to. And that kind of pushed me. And I asked in the first workshop that I ever did to provide my services. I did it for free, and I did it just to expose myself of like, okay, what am I bringing in? And I can tell you, the first workshop that I ever did, it was completely full. People were standing up wanting to know, what is undocumented professional? What kind of services are you going to be providing? And when I started saying, oh, I'm going to be providing career resources, career services, how can we start implementing inclusive policies and inclusive paid opportunities for the undocumented community, that room was completely full and people wanted to know more. And that was my opportunity to ask questions. Hey, what would you like to learn from this particular space that is called undocumented professionals, that I still don't really know what I'm going to do, but let's go ahead and think about that. So I think bringing people in and asking them, what would you like to get from this, from your services, from your experiences, I think that's also something that I would recommend, that I'm still learning. And actually right now, undocumented professionals is going through a very big change. We are becoming an LLC, and like Josimar said, which is a for-profit. I was going through the route of nonprofit before when I started, but I decided for-profit just because now some of the services that I'm bringing is to really continue providing paid opportunities for the undocumented community. And I believe that I can create over 1,000 independent contracting opportunities through a mentorship program that we are developing, and that we're almost done with it. And I'm very excited to see it. I think it just reminds me that we're always changing. Your business is always going to evolve. Whatever you start with doesn't mean that's what you're going to be stuck with. It just keeps changing. You don't know where it's going to take you. So I'm very excited to see where it leads, next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charette. We appreciate that and everything that you have done for the community by way of undocumented professionals. Make sure to follow Charette on socials if you haven't already. She shares out so much phenomenal information. But I wanted to make sure that we spend the last few minutes being able to get to your questions, right? The audience's questions, because this is what it's about, right? We could share out only so much of our stories and our experiences within an hour and a half, but this is the part where you all come in and tell us what you all want to know. And so we've already received some questions via the Q&A function. And so these questions, most of them are toward very specific panelists. So I'm going to get started. Armando, there was a question for you. This question is from Sarah L. And it says, Armando, with you working to change the narrative of what it means to be an immigrant, how do you properly judge the people you work with to make sure that they are not driving back the sad story that is always tied to immigrant stories?
For some collaborations, they're the ones who actually tell me that they don't want the sad story. Or they are the ones who have told me, oh, we love what you're doing. We want to create these new videos, and we don't want to show the victimized narrative, exactly what you're doing. So some collaborations, some projects we have been in the same page since the beginning, and some others, there have been a couple I have told them exactly what my vision is for projects, my vision for my work overall in general. There was this company that wanted to hire me to direct a short film about undocumented immigrants, and I had to straight up tell them, just to let you know, some of these questions for the interview I don't agree with, and also I don't want to show undocumented immigrants crying on the screen, which I have a feeling that that's exactly what you want. So I kind of explained to them about why I wasn't part of that narrative. And they agree. They actually learn. And I know that it's a lot of information to process within like one meeting, but they agree to let me in charge of the vision for the project. So we did change the narrative for that. We did change questions about the interviews. So for me, I've never been afraid of telling people what my vision is when it comes to document underrepresented communities in general. I feel like Hollywood has created this template of how to create projects about underrepresented communities, which is, let's put people in front of the camera crying, and that's how we're going to change the world. And it's not like that. But unfortunately, Hollywood already created that. So a lot of people, companies, people who want to create projects, filmmakers, new filmmakers, want to follow that narrative. So for me, since I started my own series on documented tales, I feel like that helped me to know exactly my vision and to speak up my voice and my mind. And that's why I never have a problem when it comes to future collaborations with any of clients or organizations or companies that I'm going to collaborate with.
Thank you for standing your ground, Armando. And Yossi, I see you started to answer the question, but I think it's important that other folks get this answer as well, too, because I thought it was very fascinating. And it says, Yosimar, you spoke about getting your family on payroll and getting them benefits. Are these family members undocumented? If so, what is the process of getting them on payroll and benefits by way of your LLC?
Yeah, so I think it goes vary by state. Sadly, I'm in California, so California tends to be a little bit more, there's a lot of more opportunities. Well, I don't say a lot more, but there's definitely, considering other states, there's definitely a lot more assistance for undocumented immigrants here. I think one of the biggest things for me is like hiring them as independent contractors, simply like how I started working when I didn't have a number, simply not asking questions and making sure that my paperwork goes through regulations. And if it goes through that, then through that entity. But the other thing, offset too, like there's offset prices. For example, one of the biggest things, if I have, for example, an office space, I have someone clean my office space, how do I get them on payroll to deduct that as well? So for me, one of the biggest things that I've learned through making money once you have your company is that you have to spend it. Because one of the things that happens with immigrants is that we like to hoard money. But sadly, in America, if you hoard money at the end of the year, the government's going to take it because they're going to tax you on everything. So I think one of the biggest things of looking at your business is what can I write off? What is an, I learned that like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. Like, you know, these are the things that I can write off. Obviously, there's a certain percentage of stuff that you have to write off, but all those things. And once I learned that, I realized that actually I'm giving way more money to them than I'm supposed to because I'm not writing things off for my businesses. So I started thinking about breaking down that in that way. So obviously, the biggest thing is for me, hopefully, it's once I get my own company, it's figuring out how I can invest in their own dreams, right? My stepfather owns a construction, he does construction, but he works as an independent contractor for a construction company. Obviously, he has the wisdom, the knowledge, but now it's figuring out how to venture into getting the licensing for us to be able to do that through that and managing that. So it's just like learning the operating systems of those entities that are is very crucial. And I know I said like a lot of times we're scared of making money. I think one of the biggest things within our culture is that we get taught that sometimes el dinero es algo malo or it corrupts you or somehow, I don't know, no sé qué pasa, that we like money, but at the same time tenemos un poco de miedo or susto, right? And I think one of the biggest things for me that I'm very grateful, and I think all these panelists, right? And I definitely use me as a resource. If you're ever interested in turning your narrative into a personal story that you can pitch or do throughout the country to universities, because there's always people looking for public speakers, I can definitely help you. I've helped so many people. And I'm very transparent about what the range of prices for that goes. So if you're thinking of your product of like, hey, how much should I charge for this? You can ask any of us. And I'm sure we'll be very transparent about like, hey, on average, this is what I would charge. And I'm so happy because I can do that with a lot of friends. Hey, I got hit up by this place. I know that this is a client of yours. Well, how much do you charge for that? I think not being scared to say numbers is very important porque a veces es lo que pasa, le tenemos miedo of like coming out too greedy or too like, oh, I don't want people to think that nomás estoy interesado en el dinero. No, it's not about that. It's that the payment, you need to think about this payment is also, the way that I got taught is every payment should make it less work for you to create more work. So si te quita el estrés, entonces de pagar la renta, entonces tienes más tiempo for your creativity to do more work. So think about it in that way. So definitely utilize me. I know there was a question also about opportunities. I know that we are getting ready to do figure out if we find a social media intern for our paid internship for us to help me manage some of that stuff. So definitely follow me on Instagram if you have some sort of knowledge around that and we can figure it something out. I would rather preferably give opportunity to someone that's DACA or undocumented. So yeah, hit me up. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Yossi. And another question that came up, and I think Toby would be the perfect person to answer this. I'm sure all of you all have, but it says, how do you reach out to promote your business once you're starting out? And the reason why I thought Toby would be perfect is because this woman has worked with Twitter. She's delivered her beautiful artwork. You can't even say that it's just floral arrangements. It's pieces of art to celebrities, right? So if you all look up her website and how she's been able to brand and be the phenomenal person that she is, then you definitely need to be the person to answer this question.
Thank you so much, Danae. I really appreciate you for that. I would say that the way I'm able to reach out, that was the question, right, to my clients. I would say to me, what I did was seize the moment, I would say. I've been able to get a lot of opportunities sharing my undocumented story. People actually care, and they want to hear it. I've also been able to get a $10,000 grant from sharing my story. So I would say that being able to really utilize your story as a tool to move you up to where you want to be. People care about things like this. So just connecting and finding your network and people who actually align with what you're saying I would say that being able to work with the corporate clients I've been able to work with was really utilizing that moment of Black Lives Matter, being able to really use that moment to ask people to be about what they were talking about, right? You say you wanted to do this, well, then support a Black business. So I think it's about connecting on just values with people who align with your values, and then asking for that help. Closed mouths don't get fed.
I love that. Thank you, Toby, for that message. And I want to do one more question before we wrap up. And David, I would love for you to be able to answer this question if possible. And it asks, I do not have DACA or other documentation, such as not having a social security number. When it comes to start a job based on the career path you wanted in college, what documentation are you supposed to have, given the fact that you simply do not have an SSN? Was being an entrepreneur the only way where you don't need an SSN?
Well, I still don't have DACA. So you most definitely can be an entrepreneur without your DACA, without the Social Security number. What you need to do, well, how I started basically, not what you, how I started, basically how I started was to make sure I was able to get an EIN. The EIN is what works instead of a Social Security number. Whenever I'm working with bigger clients and they are asking for a number of that type. So if it's not the Social Security number, it's the EIN. And then I provide a W-9 with the EIN to those entities. Just do make sure that at some point you do have your general liability and your professional liability, because those liabilities are the ones that protect you from any professional lawsuit or anything that can happen while you're performing your services. So they are, I believe, I mean, it's not cheap to have a general liability, but they do run around $100 a month. But if you're gonna be continuously working throughout the year, I think that $100 a month for your general liability is completely worth it. Your EIN, depending on the state where you're in, California, it is one of the biggest, one of the most expensive states. So we do pay an $800 initial franchise tax fee to the state of California, and so that's annual. So annually, I'm paying as a company about $1,900 to $2,000. So that is how I started. If you don't have capital to start your business, there are opportunities to obtain grants for your business, whether that is a seed grant through Immigrants Rising or other opportunities that are promoted by, I think, Promotoras or MEDA or any other entity, or OCEA, Democracy of Work Institute. There are different organizations in California that do have resources for you to begin that process of legitimizing your business.
Thank you so much for that, David. And that's why I wanted you to answer that question from a non-DACA perspective. We tend to get jumbled up with conversations around immigration as it pertains to documented and TPS recipients. And we tend not to focus on individuals who are completely sin papeles. So thank you so much for bringing the clarity of the EIN, general liability, because $100 per month, like you said, is a small price to pay to make sure that you don't have to be liable for any additional lawsuits that may come your way. And I just wanted you all really quickly, before I turn it back over to Rocio, is to go ahead and give one resource per person that you have really relied on as an entrepreneur. Immigrants Rising aside, honey, okay? Because you all have shouted out IR a few times. Okay, so thank you for that. But aside from IR, I would love for you all to be able to give one of your favorites. For me, it is PDF Escape. Before I started to work at IR, I continue to do speaking engagements with colleges and universities around the country, educating their educators as well as their scholars. And PDF Escape was crucial because mama's cheap, honey, and I was not about to pay Adobe Acrobat to go ahead and sign contracts. So PDF Escape allowed me to do it free 99. And so that is my top resource. So who would like to go next?
I can go. I would say that, like, I don't have one in particular. The thing about it is, it's so important to have mentors and in your life, like Nancy was saying, that's like such an important aspect. So what I've always done was when I want to get into something, I do my research, I find out who it inspires me in that lane, and I reach out. Like that's really been my thing since the very beginning. My first internship was me reaching out to someone on Facebook, and now I'm here. So not any specific resource, but just finding who, like what you want to do, who is in that industry, and reach out to as many people as you can. That would be my takeaway from that question.
That's really good. How about you, Nancy?
The first place I went to look for resources when I had that like, oh shit moment that I was like, I'm an entrepreneur, was the SBA. So I went on the SBA's website, the Small Business Administration, and I looked for organizations in the area who were helping women entrepreneurs. And I received a lot of resources through some of the organizations that I actually look for resources. They're continuing to like uplift me by like shouting out my business, but also I applied to get a grant, and earlier this year I got $10,000 from a grant, and I basically receive all the resources from coaching from that organization. So I think that just looking for organizations in your area that might be available to provide resources would be amazing. So that's my advice.
SBA, and I've gone ahead and linked them in the chat. Okay, what about you, Charette?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Sure. What is one resource that you previously relied on or continue to rely on as an entrepreneur?
I think it's really, and I think I don't remember who mentioned that, but I definitely have heard that somebody shared this, is really going back to your audience, to those potential clients, or to just asking the community, what would you like to gain, what would you like to learn, or what would you like to, always that for me, that has really helped me to continue evolving as an entrepreneur, and just as a learning. I'm always learning, even though I feel like I may feel like I know certain things more than others. I still go to those particular, like one thing that I don't know and I'm trying to learn more and more is to get grants for my business. That's something that I have never learned to do. And now more and more I'm trying to put some time out to really apply to those grants. And I was able to get 2 grants recently of $10,000. Which is really going to be helpful for me for the next thing that I want to do with undocumented professionals. So that really, my hope is obviously that I continue to get more and more, because I want whoever I bring to my team, which I have a lot of projects that I work with many independent independent contractors with, and I want to make sure that whoever I bring, that I get them paid. That is my goal, that if I continue to pay them. So those grants really are going to help me. So, just continue to learn and to continue to be open to learning new things, even though it may seem you already know some of that information, because I'm always learning. So I'm always trying to get, free things. And the other thing is social media. For me, social media has really opened a lot of doors, and just utilizing those doors. I'm like washing my dishes or washing clothes while I'm putting something on the TV, learning about, how to be how to use reels, because social media is always changing, and it's always there's always something new to learn. I want to be more on TikTok, for example, which I haven't had the chance to, just because social media just really can take so much time of creating content. But I think just choose, as long as you choose one social media platform that works for you, I think that really helps. So I've learned that has really helped me, that are free and accessible to anyone.
Thank you, Charette. And I want to make sure we have enough time for Armando, Yossi, and David to share your resources, because I think these are the things that they're going to take away. So what about you, Yossi?
On DocuProfessionals, they're always posting a bunch of resources for you, who's hiring, who's looking for internships, who's looking for scholarships. Like they're very adamant about putting, this is for, they don't ask for people who are DACA, non-DACA. So definitely a great resource. I'm always reposting their stuff because I feel like it's very important for us to know. And the other thing for me is also, again, mentors, people that who are in positions where I want to be. A quick email, hey, I need this. Who do you know? And then connecting through that.
Period. Do not be afraid to make an ask. And what about you, Armando?
Resources. I think I'm just gonna repeat what everyone already said. Community. I remember my first invoice. I didn't know what an invoice was, and I remember two of my friends were helping me doing. They were also figuring out what an invoice was, and between the three of us, we were trying to make an invoice. And then social media, and like it's been mentioned, and organizations, nonprofit organizations. There's a lot of organizations that help me, but I'm always, wherever I go, I'm always telling people about Immigrants Rising, because they have so many resources, educational resources for not only for entrepreneurs but for students. So yeah, nonprofit organizations, community, and social media. Yes, to all of that.
Thank you, Armando. What about you, David? Last but certainly not least, what's a resource that has assisted you in your entrepreneurial journey?
My biggest resource up to date, besides Immigrants Rising, has been Democracy at Work Institute, or also known as they were the ones who actually directed me into the group as to being a co-founder of my company. They actually still have a program called the Rapid Response, and the Rapid Response is to be able to create LLCs for individuals who do not have work authorization. They have projects all throughout the United States. So definitely, I do believe that if you are looking into establishing an LLC along with a group of other entrepreneurs who are also in the same situation as us, I think the Democracy at Work Institute will be a good resource.
That's amazing. So Democracy of Work Institute, and I believe that's the link that I just included. And I promise you all, I did not pay any of them to say IR as many times as they did, but honey, it works out as some free promo. We just talked about that. It worked out. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up on my end. It's been truly an honor and a privilege to really share space with you all in this capacity. So thank you so much for that, everything that you've had to share out. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Rocio.
Thank you all. I am feeling inspired and honored to be in this space with all of you and being able to hear all of your stories and being able to see all of the amazing questions that you as the panelists have for our community, for our folks. And so there is definitely one big takeaway that I'm taking here, and that is that I think we can all agree that the world is filled with problems. And we're constantly trying to run away from problems. And one of the things that I've seen is that there are so many folks who are bringing in their creativity to be able to seek problems, identify problems, to then come up with some of those solutions. And it's really about finding people who care about solving those same problems that you want to bring to you as part of your network. And so I really want to thank you all for sharing your expertise and everything that you shared. I do want to share a quick link, because I do want to hear more about what are some of the things that you as a participant were able to take away. So if you can scan the following QR code, or you can go to menti.com And if you can share with us what is a takeaway from this panel session. And we're very excited to see what folks have to share and being able to take this as an inspiration and as a motivation to continue to bring these conversations and to continue to bring people together in similar spaces. So if you can scan the code and share with us more about what are some of the takeaways from this session. And I'm gonna go ahead and keep the code up there for folks to scan it. We are going to be sharing the recording to this panel session. And as it was shared in the chat, we are going to be having our next session next November 8th. And this is going to be our education theme. So we're very excited to have that. Now, with that being said, thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all on November 8th.
See you guys on the 8th.